What's up? Checkpoint XP. We'll be back in about 59 seconds. Welcome to a special edition of Geek Culture Congress live with my very, very good friend. I like to call him my good friend. He might not think of me as his good friend, but I like to think of him as good because he made a very special, dear to my heart game that I've actually had him prior on the show. We talked about the Robotech card games series that he made. Ladies and gentlemen, David Killingsworth. What an awesome name for the kind of games that this guy makes. David Killingsworth. He's from SolarFlare Games, and we're going to talk about something super exciting. Because a lot of you guys here on the Checkpoint XP enjoy the live D&D games that go down here on the channel. So he's got something similar in the works, but I'll let him explain to you guys first. But Dave, welcome back to the show, man. How you been?
Good, Speedy. How's it going?
Yeah,
just
good,
living the Robotech life for the last 3 years. So this is our change.
A little change, a little switch up. How do you? I mean, did you like? Did you like all? How was the whole experience working with Harmony Gold and all that good stuff?
It was. I never really had a bad experience with Harmony. There's a lot of people who have a lot of hate. A lot of the hate's going away with the new deal they signed.
Yeah.
I worked with Tommy. We did just tons and tons of art, and as much as people kind of pick on Tommy, he was great to work with. Kevin was great to work with. The whole thing was a good experience. We came to him. Robotech was what combination Robotech and Speed Racer probably what got me into anime when I was a teenager. And for me, it was kind of hey, I got this game idea. Can we work together? And they went, yeah. And
we worked, man. That's great.
We worked out a deal, and there's things that were sticky, but the thing is that people, it's like, okay, this leg on this mech has to have these changes. Drove my artist.
It's the IP,
nuts.
It's the IP. No, it has to be like this, especially when it's not only them, it's also what they rented, or the agreement they have with the existing owners of the IP too, or the original creations too.
Like when we did Crisis, but there was a lot of really cool things. Like when we did Crisis Point. For the longest time,
that's my favorite, and I have to find a special victim to get into that one. But when we're in it, it's a great game. I love that one.
There's the flag for Army of the Southern Cross has never been canonized, and we worked with Tommy. We took the 1-second snippet of the flag from the anime, and we actually rendered it out to a real flag, and Tommy approved it, and it's in the RPG book that's coming out, I think, or it has come out for Southern Cross. I don't remember if it's out yet or not, but Strange Machine's working on that, and we told everybody just use our stuff. For me, the dream was, hey, I made something that became part of that universe forever, And some of the mechs we got into Invid Invasion and Crisis Point, or no, not Invid Invasion, but Crisis Point. I mean, you only see them for a split second on screen, and the guys, Martin Hanze. He did tons of research, gave us a lot of stuff. There's guys in those groups, especially the Crisis Point, the Masters group on Facebook, gave us just so much stuff, and we, some of those things just really didn't exist, and the artist pulled them out. Tommy helped us with them, and they came out really nice, and they live forever in that game.
That's awesome. Probably the only place where you can actually just stare at it and enjoy it for longer than the actual show.
Yeah, they with what Strange Machine's doing, they're going to use a lot of that reference material, I think, for their RPG that they're working on for that too. So it'll be nice to
Oh, that's nice.
you'll be able to finally go out and fight in a hover tank if you want.
So I know that all is all changing, all that legalese
Mm-hmm.
between now switching over to Funimation and Sony and all that good stuff. And you're pretty much, as far as your involvement and as far as making games, are you done now, or?
Yeah, we talked with Funimation about renewing the license, and just with the timing that we've got, we're doing this game now, and
Right.
we've got a concept that we want to do. It's a deck builder, but it'd be
Mm.
based in Robotech, where if you played it, I don't know how many games you've played, but you know how Marvel has one currency and DC has two currencies when you play their deck builders.
Right.
It would actually have two currencies if you're playing the RDF, one currency if you're playing the Zentradi, and the game play completely different ways depending on which way you decided to set the game up and play it.
Hmm.
So we may talk to a Strange Machine and see if we can partner with them, not be the license holder per se, but give them the idea so it could get out there. Because if I
Yeah.
can't make it myself, I want the
Right.
fans to have something where they can play it and have fun
Right.
with it. But yeah, no, we're the end of June we're done. We'll be done. We won't sell anything anymore, and we won't be developing anything more. I still, have the rights to all my mechanics and all that stuff, but we won't be working in the Robotech sandbox anymore.
Oh, well. At least it was fun while it lasted, I guess.
Absolutely,
And
it
unfortunately,
was
the
labor of love, but
yeah, definitely labor of
it
love.
was
I know.
it was a beast.
Yeah, it was, especially when you try to roll out the Invid one and the COVID hit, and
Hmm.
it was yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's out there, so anybody who wants to get any of that stuff, get it now while it's hot, man. I mean, I even walked to my local comic book shop and I see they're sitting on the shelves,
Hmm.
they're literally sitting on the shelves right now. So I mean, the distribution is out there. Amazon's an awesome tool if you really want
Hmm.
to get something. So of course you can always go to SolarFlareGames.com, of course, and even Robotech.com, I believe, still has their copies as well. But let's move on to the future. The future of SolarFlare Games is the brand new project that you've been working on, which is kind of like a fantasy role play D&D style kind of game. And I'll let you introduce it, since
Okay.
it's completely virgin. It's a whole new lore, and I'm sure you have your own story for it and all that stuff. I'll let you
Okay.
give it your it's elevator pitch, should I say? There you go.
So I have a habit of when I play board games, I find mechanics that I enjoy or I like, and I tend to figure out ways to mash them together. And
Hmm.
this is really an extension of that. This will be the 12th game that I've worked on or designed or
Yeah, no, I
and
mean
published.
you're not a rookie in building these games, and I mean
No,
it's especially
I've never had
fantasy
a big one.
style. Yeah, and you've done a lot of the children version ones. We
Mhm.
talked about the Nightmare Forest and stuff like
Yep.
that. Well, the Archmage Origins, was that one of your first ones? No, the more the
No,
outer print ones now, right? Or
yeah,
like the
the
dumpster
first one
brawl. I remember
that was our
Lords of
second.
Rock.
Thrashcar was our first, which I
Ah,
don't.
yes, Thrash Car.
We might take some flack if somebody digs that out somewhere and looks at it because some of the
Those are very
stereotypes.
beta.
It was. Here's how I'll give you a little history lesson about this. So when you first start doing this, you don't know what you don't know. And in 2013, 2012, 2013, there was way less information than there is now. And so
Yeah,
we made it's a racing game kind of thing, but it's a beat each other up as you do it, screw your neighbor kind of thing. And we used it. It was it American stereotype supercar action racing, what it was supposed to be, which was we were going to call it
mm-hmm.
ASCAR, and we decided we couldn't call it that. So it was the racing teams
Didn't
are like
work out.
the hillbillies and the soccer moms, and
Right.
and it's over the top, it's silly, tongue in cheek. My team keeps wanting me to, when we come to the 10-year anniversary of it, release V10 Turbo and take all the stuff we've learned and re-engineer the game smooth and slick. And the components in it are over. Some of the stuff was way overdone. We did too much, didn't know what we were doing. And then we did
Right.
Dumpster Brawl. And then Nightmare Forest was born. We've done 3 different games in that. We've got another one we've got designed that it's going to take a lot of the stuff we learned from the Robotech game, the
Mm-hmm.
Invid Invasion game, and take some of the fiddly stuff out. And the stuff that was in it specifically to service the theme we don't need for the fantasy style Nightmare Forest. We're going to call it Monsters Horde. But then we came to this. This is This is called Quest Heroes of Sorcado, and what we wanted to take was some of the aspects of like what people talk about with Gloomhaven, where it's this big kind of long sprawling campaign, but I wanted to
Okay.
do it without the 8 billion minis and the 45 minutes of setup and teardown. I wanted
I mean
something that,
that's always like a like, oh man, like like when you want to get into one of those kind of games. I changed the background for your
okay.
with your thing there. For the project, since we're talking about it now.
Mhm.
I wanna when you want to get into those games, and it's kind of like minis and painting them and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
think that's cool for everyone who likes that. But some people just want to get into the meat and potatoes, and
Well,
one of these games is kind of like that, yeah.
and for us, it's about the lightness.
Hmm.
People who play my games other than the Robotech games, and even then we snuck some fun stuff in.
Yeah.
But for my games, it's how can I sit down with people, set it up quick, be very social, be very fun, tongue in cheek. People, one of my things about my games, there's always puns in there somewhere or stuff. If I can make my wife's eyes roll, then I know it was a good one. That kind of thing. And with Quest, we were like, okay, how do I take some of the campy fun of the old D&D cartoon? And you'll notice there's some homages in this game to all the stuff. I
I
started
love
playing
that
D-
cartoon, man.
well, I started playing D&D and I got my first book in 19 Christmas of 1977.
Yeah.
And so it's just all those things I love it. And we wanted a good long story that you could. So the game's kind of built around the concept of you have 8 full adventures that you play. You don't need a GM. The adventure and the campaign book combine to have this long epic fantasy story that's got all the great tropes that you like in a the bad guy turned good, the hero fighting the dark side of themselves, the epic boss is gonna break free unless you stop him, and there's some twists in this thing and turns that you won't expect. But the game's built around this storybook, and a good friend of mine is a best-selling fantasy and science fiction author, so she wrote the story for us.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
yeah, that's a if you want to look her up, it's D.W. Vogel. She's written science
Okay.
fiction and fantasy. She's great. But she helped us write the story, and it's 8 separate adventures. And we said, like, okay, how do we make this so it's not a legacy game, so people can reset it and play it with their friends or their kids, and they may know the twist at the few spots where there's a story twist, but as you play the game, you'll hit sections where the story tells you go play the adventure in zone such and such or such as and that's a deck of cards. It's got all kinds of stuff in it, monsters and traps and events and side quests and story mode. And just
Wow.
we packed all this crazy stuff in there so that when it says as you're traveling along and you've reached the dungeon, because the story leads you to these places, but they're kind of we use a generic term, city,
Mm.
wilderness, dungeons. So
Mm.
they can apply to any place in this world. And
Right.
then you shuffle that deck up and everybody gets a card. And then you flip the card over and you have to resolve it. If it's a monster, you have to fight it. If it's these other things, you have to. They're all interact in a different way, and I'll show you on the tabletop simulator a little bit what those look
All
like.
right. Yeah.
You play through till you finish an adventure. You fight a boss. If you
Mhm.
win, you get a
Mhm.
point to upgrade your character. There's a whole list of upgrades for your characters based on their level, and you spend those points. You upgrade your character, and then when you start the next adventure, one thing you won't be able to see on the tabletop simulator is there's 7 sealed bags in this game. So when you finish the first adventure, you open bag 2, and you can tell by the backs. We add more cards to the game, more treasures, more weird things you can encounter, stronger monsters, because obviously as you're adventuring and gaining perks and treasure, you're getting stronger. So we had to figure out a way to cause the game to progress. And this is where people are like, oh, is it kind of, and there's cards in the game that as you beat them or encounter them, they go to the vault, which means they go to the box and they don't come back in the game. And we had a long online argument with some people about, is that legacy? And they're like, well, are you destroying the cards? I'm like, no, I don't
No.
want people to pay $70 for a
Yeah,
game and
and you rip it
have
up.
to tear it up. So it's I guess I would say it's legacy adjacent, because there are things that come out and there's things you add, but you can reverse it and reset the whole game again and play it over. And it's going to be a different experience, because those adventure zones you're going to run into, because I think we figured out one day there's 8 adventures with an average of 3 or 4 zones you hit. So you're going to talk in like 24 different zones that you're going to experience,
Right.
and you don't know what it's going to be different every time you play. It's just the story, the connective tissue is the same. So that it's a combination of, I try to tell people it's a combination of light RPG fantasy combined with a campaign story, combined with choose your own adventure elements, combined with character progression, and a whole lot of social laughing and having a good time, working together, staying engaged to try to beat the game.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So, do you want to share the video with, or you want to?
Sure, let's do the hype video first. That's
okay. Yeah.
So
yeah,
this is a cut of the Kickstarter video that gives people a sense of what the game's like.
Welcome to a story of darkness and light, of heroes and legends, and an enemy that waits in the shadows for a chance to drown the world of the living in fire and blood. Deep beneath the peaceful kingdom of Sorcado, evil is stirring. The seals on a demon lord's ancient prison weaken, and monstrous beasts roam the land. Enter a fantasy world of adventure, where survival hangs on the choices you make and the roll of a die. Propel yourself and your fellow heroes through a cooperative story campaign that will take you from the Blade's Edge Mountains to the crypt of the fallen hero. Make friends and fight fearsome foes. Pick your path through traps and choose how to handle events, learning skills and gaining treasure to aid you in your travels. Sharpen your blades and master your spells, for only the bravest will survive the final battle, defeat the demon lord, and become true heroes of Sorcado.
Man, I'm excited already. I want to buy it already.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. My artists are fantastic people. They do a lot of that faux animation is just Simon mastered that, but we my guys are like, hey, we can do some stuff like that. We'll have fun with it. So that's what we've done.
Nice. Okay, so do you want to get into actually how the gameplay will kind of flow with the tabletop simulator, or
sure? Yeah, I can kind of just give an idea of what the game kind of. So one of the things we did with the game was we wanted to build in a basic, like a prequel story. So basically, actually, what the game really has is 8 full adventures and then 1/3 or 1/4 of an adventure to introduce you to the mechanics. How do they work? It doesn't show you everything because a lot of the things work together the same way. Sorry, my nose itches tonight. Anyway, what it does is just walks you through like one round of an adventure zone, which, like I said, in most of the campaign stories, each of them is 3 or 4 of these adventure zones with a lot of other story kind of plugged in. There's side quests that pop up. There's travel things that pop up. There's other stuff as you play each game, it gets a little bigger as you go. But this is a very simple, it's like, hey, this is how the heroes met and had their first little adventure and decided to become a team, but it only plays around once and it gives you the very basics. But I'll kind of just go through the elements. If you to any of my,
I'm gonna let you take over right now, and
okay.
And while you're explaining how everything works, I'm gonna go grab my Uber Eats before some stray dog.
No problem. No problem.
I'll be right back.
So on all of our social stuff right now, there's a link. This tabletop simulator module is available for anybody who wants to try the demo adventure just like it is in the box. You'll have the rule book, which is still a work in progress, a D20. Down here, there's health cubes, loot cubes, and armor cubes. But the thing is, each of these heroes is different. They're unique. This is the monk. In the upper right-hand corner is their health. In the bottom is the various stats that they have. And the way the game is built is the characters, instead of having like a stat in D&D where it's like I have an 18 and it gives me this bonus, we just put the bonuses on here because the way combat's going to work, combat will be you face off against the monster. You'll have a target attribute that you're going to be trying to hit with the party, and you'll add up your bonus from your character for the target that you're going after. And the size of the monster, and I'll show you that too. You add these stats together and you add it to a D20 roll, just like if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, I like that.
And you hit or you miss, and you go from there. So the heroes each come with starter equipment, and you'll see like the icon in the bottom right hand corner tells you whether it's armor, a weapon or a magic item, because each hero can only equip one of each. And when you start the game, you start with 3, but you're only going to be able to use 2 of them because we purposely made you have to make a choice. But you can see like the barbarian has their great stone sword. The icon in the bottom right says it's a axe. It's a weapon item. It fits in your weapon slot. The barbarian stats are different from everybody's stats are different. They all have a different thing that they're good at.
So the question for you: does everyone have to be a different player to make the game play, or could we could have 6 mages?
No. So there's 8 total heroes to choose from.
Okay.
You have to use 6. So even if you're playing by yourself, you can still control all 6 since it's a fully cooperative game. Any number of people can play, but you have to use 6 heroes. But it is designed the way the game is built is you kind of need to have these.
Somebody needs to be
a mix.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you're going against a monster that requires strength, this guy's great. This guy's not.
It's gonna be a short game.
Yeah, and so everybody's health's different. They all have, there's perks so when you spend those perk points from beating bosses later, some perks are generic to everybody, and some are specific to class. So the characters become very unique as they flow. So for example, I'm not gonna kind of walk through a whole play here, but I'm gonna kind of show what this looks like.
We got all the time in the world. It's up to you.
Okay, so this is like if this was the first monster. This is the first monster you face. Well, I don't want to reveal all the fun stuff, so I want people to try it. But for example, here, this is the goblin. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner that tells you how strong the monster is. With 2 eye holes, it means you, as the person who drew it, has to fight it, and you get to pick one other person to help you, and it's either the person on your left or the person on your right. And what you're going to look at is, hey, who's going to give me the best bonus to my intelligence roll, because I'm going to roll, if I'm the mage, and I'm fighting him, I start with 3 points of bonus on my die roll. And if I got Dum Dum standing next to me here with a 1, or I've got, let's see, who's a good one to choose? I think everybody actually is intelligence light here. Yeah, you could have anybody next to you anyway. There are other, like if the rogue was in this or the bard was in this, they have a better intelligence. So you're going to pick the person next to you. And the thing is, you also have equipment. So some equipment helps you with your stat rolls. So like the sword helps with strength rolls. This ring that the monk has helps with wisdom because it gives you a +1 if you have it equipped to your wisdom rolls. So you're going to pick with a 2 eye holes, you're going to pick you and one person to your left or the person to your right. Add up all the bonuses that includes from equipment or gear that you want to use. There's things in the game that you'll draw out of the treasure deck that have one-time uses, and they're called gear. And you can sacrifice those things to cause things to happen, whether it's a bonus to roll or re-roll or magical effects. There's just a wide variety. There's over 40, 50 pieces of treasure in this game that all have different effects. But this would be, you'd roll, if you hit a 14 or higher, the goblin's defeated. It goes to, in this case, it has that skull with the X, which means it goes to the vault, which is here. Vault is, like I said, anything with a vault icon that you beat goes out of the game from that point forward. If you win, you get the stuff at the bottom that it says, which is, hey, I'd get 2 loot tokens, a stat potion, and 1 quickness potion. If you lost, everybody would lose 2 health. So if you were playing, this card would be in front of you. You'd have, let's see here.
Another question I have for you while you're doing that, hopefully I won't throw you off there. It's will all those stats of your characters stay static, or would you get like a power up, like my intelligence we're able to raise by 2 by this amulet or something?
So yeah, so items you have will like this here. If you have it equipped to the monk, which you would, so you'd look down here. And in this case, when you go to fight something with wisdom, his wisdom is considered a 3 because he's got an item that boosts his wisdom. But there are perks. So when you spend perk points, there are perk points that allow you to boost stats. So you can actually increase your stats with the spending of those perk points after you beat bosses. So the perk points is
kind of like the XP?
Correct. Absolutely.
All right.
And then in the game, you have things here that these potions. And it's hard for me to, I don't know if I can zoom them in very well. There you go. That's a quickness potion. That cool. If you have one of those in your inventory, which is over here, if you fail your roll, you can drink that potion and you get to re-roll it. This, if you drink it, it gives you 2 health back. This, if you drink it, it allows you. So if you would fail to beat the monster, it slaps you and then moves to the next person in circular order, and you have to fight it again. Damage doesn't carry over. It's like it kind of resets between fights. If you don't kill it outright, it keeps coming.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's not gonna walk away after hit you once.
Correct. And a lure potion would allow you to redirect it to any other hero you want. So if you've got one and you go, oh, this thing requires intelligence, and the next 2 heroes have crap for intelligence, you might want to use this potion to make it go over and fight the wizard this time for the better stat. Right. It gives you meaningful choices to make. Okay. Poison potions, if you drink it, it's a magical potion that whatever weapon you're wielding gets +2 to its roll because it's poisoned now. And then you have stat potions. So if you drink this before you roll, there's a table down there below the potions. How well you roll on the table tells you how much bonus gets added to your roll for stats that match the potion. So you can see the red one's strength, the green one's dexterity, the purple one's wisdom, the blue one is intelligence, and the last one's luck. All of those require you drink them and you roll. So you're kind of rolling the dice. You could get 0, it's pretty rare, and you could get you get +4, which is fantastic. And so as you play, you gain as you fight monster like this one tells you gain a stat potion and 1 quickness potion. So once you beat this, you get to pick one of these 4 stat potions to add to your group party treasure inventory.
Right. And I'm sure as soon as you drink one of those, you get one of those awesome tokens, SolarFlare tokens, to add to your card, right?
Yeah, and so you drink it, see what it is, add it to your roll, and then you discard it back to the pool. When you get treasure, loot tokens go where the gold is, and later in the game, you'll have times where you run into the peddler guy, which is this guy here. And you can buy other potions from him. You can repair armor that's damaged. Nice. There's penalties you can get called being cursed or being diseased. If you're cursed, you automatically get -1 to your die roll every time until the curse is gone. If you're diseased, you can't drink potions. So there's all of these different things that can happen. So what I'll show you now is normally what happens is all the heroes will be sitting in a circle around the table, and you deal one of these cards out to every person so that each person has to encounter one of these cards. So like I've described, there's other things in the game that can come up. Let me flip. So other than monsters. So this would be a trap. You can see the icon in the upper left-hand corner, and it would say spores. And so whoever drew the card would go, oh, look, how the light bounces off all the motes floating in the air. It's so beautiful. Oh, no. And then it says entry 11001. In the main adventure book, which is over 140 pages long, there is an entry for every special card that has a lookup condition. So this says, oh, I'm facing this trap. There's these spores flying here. And you'd go to entry 101, which would be here. And somebody other than the hero who drew the card would read this to them. What could be dangerous about a field of flowers? It hardly seems like a worry. And then you'd ask the hero who drew this card, which do you want to do? Lie down and take a nap, run through the field as fast as you can, or turn around and choose a different path. And you stop. Whoever's reading it, stop. And this is in the book, and they're reading out of the book. And the hero has to make a choice. Which of these things do they want to do? And if they chose B, obviously that's the best choice. You rush through the flowers, the pollen coats your armor. A swarm of butterflies swoop in and carries the pollen away, leaving you shiny and fresh. Gain a luck potion. And you made a good choice. You defeated the trap in the right way. Either of the other 2 choices has bad things.
I like it, man. I really like the whole concept already.
But we give you a saving throw on this one, so it says test mental. And so when we tell you test mental or physical,
you don't get a saving throw on choose your own adventure. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
So there are things in the game that tell you roll against specific stats. So like if we were telling you do a strength check, you would roll the d20 and add your 2 from your character here. And if you wanted to burn a potion, you could. But for when we tell you physical or mental, we're making it a little easier for you. So if it says choose roll against target physical, you can choose either your stat, your strength, or your dex, because those are your 2 physical stats.
Right.
If it says check mental, then it's going to be against your intelligence or your wisdom. So at least give you an opportunity to choose which of the 2 is better for you.
Right.
And so like for this one, if you chose just lie down and take a nap, when you finally wake up, your eyes feel like kitty litter and you're hungry, so hungry. So now you have to make a mental check. And so you'd roll a d20 against one of your mental stats and see if you get a 12 or better. If you do, you're lucky. Nothing happens. That's your reward. If you failed, you'd lose 1 health and you'd lose a potion because while you were sleeping for so long, one of your potions disappeared on you. And that's how a trap works. Let me show you a couple of these other ones here real quick.
I like it.
So this is what we call a story moment. So you just flip this, and the thing is, with any of these cards, it isn't a monster. If you're the hero that flips it, once you resolve this card, you still have to draw another card because everybody has to have drawn one monster for the zone to finish. So everybody's, you're like, if this was you, your whole turn isn't flipping this card over and reading the entry. You would draw another card until you got a monster. You keep resolving cards until you got a monster. Mm-hmm. But this would be like, you notice the mage is searching through his pockets of his robe and look at concentration on his face. Entry 2. So once again, somebody else would flip this over, or it'd be in a book and they'd be reading it. Right. And this one's simpler. It's just this one is more story. There's some more story for you. So the story moments give you bits of story that add to the larger story. And this one, you just pick A or B. One, nothing really happens, and the other one is a really nice thing happens, and it's over. That's story moments are quick little hits and done. They give you a little flavor, a little laugh. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're serious. Like there's one where you run into a ghost.
So they will get some plot, not just mechanics and
correct. It's not just fluff. There is fluff in here because I am a firm believer. Not everything should have to have a purpose. Some of it should just be enough just to make you all stop and laugh for a second. There are things, and then there's ones that are serious. There's like this ghost you run into, and if you do the right things, you free it from its bondage on Earth, and it goes away, and it gives you a nice reward. If you fail, it beats the crap out of you. So we try to make a nice mix of those things. And I'll skip. So let's see here. So if you were the trap guy and you'd resolved your trap, this would have been the next monster you would draw on. And you can see like this one is stronger. This one requires 4 heroes, which means it's you, the one on your left, the one on your right for sure. So it's the 3 of you for sure. Then you get to pick the person on your far left or your far right, the next one past the persons who are required to be. So that's how the monster levels, the number of eyes tells you how many people participate, and it always starts with you, and then 2 people is you and left or right, 3 of you is left and right. 4 is the 3 of you, and then 1 more left or 1 more right. 5 is you and 2 people left, 2 people right. And 6 is everybody participates. And the 6s don't actually show up till later in the game because they're stronger. And you'll find that those target numbers for those stats get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like when you're towards the end of the game and you're fighting like a dragon, the target number is like in the 30s. On a D20. Okay. So it's getting harder. When things go sideways, they go really sideways. Let me see if I can find one of the other ones here real quick. Because this deck is only like 9 cards long. That's another monster. There we go. This is what we call an event. So events are fun because they're the skull with the question mark. The Dark Cavern. Who's afraid of the dark? Not us. We have torches. And you'd go to the book for Adventure 3. This one is a lot more complicated, and you'd read the top. It has been abandoned for a reason. Well, you're going to find out why, and you tell the primary hero to make a choice. Do they want to light some torches and go exploring, walk away from the cave, sneak into the cave and explore? Now, the concept is, and it's not a perfect science because not everybody sees things the same way, but in the end, I'm the designer, so I went with what I felt made sense. So when you pick one of those choices, it gives you at least a reasonable hint of what stat it might be using to help see how successful you are with your choice. So light some torches and going exploring is a smart thing to do. So we chose intelligence. If you chose A, smart to light torches first, you're learning. And then what you would do is you'd roll a D20, add your intelligence bonus to it. And the higher you roll, the better the result of this encounter is. So if you rolled really bad, shame the cave is so full of flammable gas, torches go boom, lose 2 health. And this one's more random, but you have a chance to mitigate because you are using a stat that hopefully you picked one you figured you were strong in, and then but the higher you roll, the better things go. And then finally at the end, once you've gone around the table, everybody has drawn a monster. Now the thing is, If you don't beat your monster and it moves to the next person, eventually somebody will beat it. And that counts as your monster being beaten. It doesn't have to be beaten by you. But then in the end, what happens is you'll come along and the story will tell you, let me see here. So you've progressed through the story. It'll say, this. I'm not going to give the story away. Even the entry story has the adventure has story in it that you care about. And it says continue to the boss fight, entry 4. And what you'll find that each boss has it tells you what its health is, what the target number is for physical or mental stats, and each one has a fight methodology. It's almost always physical or mental attack, and when you fight the boss, each person fights it one-on-one. So whoever you decide goes first takes a swing at the boss swings back, next person gets their turn, swings back until either somebody in the party dies. So if somebody runs out of health, it's over. There's a nice little story mechanic that tells you you grab this item, and I'm not gonna tell you what it is, and you grab it and you trigger it before the party loses, and it resets the adventure so you can play it over. And the nice thing is since the cards you're going to interact with different each time, even having to replay an adventure because the die was against you right at the final fight, is okay, because it's not going to be slogging through exactly the same thing. The story part's going to be the same because that's just what it is. You're still progressing the story.
Right.
You've just jumped back in time a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's
restart like losing in a game, and I got to pick it up right there again.
Right, and it's like a save point, basically.
Yeah, like
how we did it. And so each boss has a different combat mechanic, so to speak. It's still you swinging away one-on-one against them, that driving their health down. Like when I attacked the boss with my mental stat, the difference between what I was supposed to hit and how high I rolled is how much damage it takes up to a cap, because we don't want a lucky die roll to kill the monster in one swing. That would be anticlimactic. So they all have magical abilities that say, oh, well, even if I hit them for 20 points of damage, they're only going to take 5 because their magic absorbs the rest, or their hard shield, or their armor, or whatever. Something that
they got some perks that's why
you have to sacrifice theme occasionally for mechanics.
Right.
So, but the idea is like one of the fights is you come up to the boss fight, and there's these goblins, and you start fighting them, and you realize if you don't beat them in one shot, the dragon eats them and gets healthier. So there's another fight where the monster rips itself in two, and the party has to split in 2 parts to fight, and you have to decide which combination of you as 3 characters is going to take on these bosses. This guy who split himself in 2 because, well, he's strong in one thing as one monster and weak in something else as the other monster, and you've got to kind of make a decision on the fly. So each of the boss fights is unique. The one thing I told people in 12 games, I've never put myself in the game until this one. I made myself the ultimate boss, boss lord at the end of this one. Yeah. It's
Killingsworth.
Like I said, it's a fantasy with a great story combined with D&D, combined with choose your own adventure, combined with a little bit of legacy adjacent mechanics, and a lot of fun. We figure if you can beat every adventure the first time through, which even in playtesting that was hard, it's possible if you get, it's still a dice game. It's got a D20 in it. It can go against you really in a hurry.
Right.
And as you learn, but even if you played this thing and were wildly successful through the prequel adventure and all 8 adventures, you just wipe the game somehow, some way. It's still each adventure takes between 90 to 120 minutes, if not a little bit longer, depending on how much you social. And I've watched people play test it who role played it the whole time. They played the characters because each of the characters, I didn't show you this. Each of the characters has a story.
Oh, okay.
They have a name. They have a story. In the game, they have a nemesis that may or may not show up. There's a card that gets inserted into the game that is specific. If that card shows up for any of the party members, it runs over and picks a fight with the hero they're the nemesis of. And it's different. Like a couple of them are straight up, I'm going to punch you, you're going to punch me, but there's a mechanic to it. There's the one where the bard nemesis shows up and they play a dueling loots contest.
That's cool.
The barbarians have an arm wrestling match. The ranger has an archery contest.
I like it.
So it's different. It wasn't the same mechanic for everybody. We wanted it to feel thematic, not just at the fantasy level, but at the I'm a ranger and I do ranger things. Like there's a really special reward for everybody if they do the right thing in certain places in this game. And so the ranger gets this special magical arrow. The bard gets this special song. I mean, they're all very different from each other. Yeah.
Very well thought out and a lot of
Thank you.
intricacies in this game. So, for lack of better terminology, any player can be their own dungeon master for as far as like, okay, we got to do the rule book and look at this and stuff like that, and also participate in the game as a character, right?
Right. Okay. The only thing that's to challenge is if somebody plays it by themselves, they have to take. We'll include something where they have to cover the bottom of the page where the results are and make their choice. If you're playing a game by yourself, you're not going to cheat yourself. So I wasn't worried about trying to figure out a way to engineer people be able to, not see the bottom. So yeah, this is basically a dungeon masterless fantasy adventure for a group of 1 to 6 people to have a great time. It's not complex. The math mechanic is pretty simple. One of the first iterations of this was literally if it was a 2-eye monster, it was you and whichever party member you fixed. And well, then we discovered that paralysis analysis lasted 5 or 10 minutes because person sitting at the table doing math with each of the other heroes. I'm like, okay, we're not doing that. That's not going to work. that takes too long. And it caused, if you ran into a string of monsters, because the monster draw is random, if you got 4 of the 6 monsters you fought were intelligence, the wizard was in every fight and nobody wanted the barbarian anywhere near the fight. That wasn't fair. It wasn't fun. So now it's much more about, where you're sitting, who's sitting next to you, and deal with it with your magic and your potions.
And I like the whole concept. So moving on from the game itself, as far as like the mechanics and stuff like that, as far as how you're gonna realize it, because it needs to get funded and needs to the money doesn't come from the sky. But let's talk about the upcoming Kickstarter that you're gonna kick off for this project. So I know some people love Kickstarters. Like they live and breathe off Kickstarter.com. They invest in all kinds of different things, especially people who like this genre and stuff like that. But there's some other people who are like, Kickstarter, and I know you're from the Robotech games, of course, which you weren't allowed to do traditional Kickstarters because of things we will not talk about anymore. Talk about, I guess, you're how many successful Kickstarters have you run already?
6.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not strangers to this. So anybody who's afraid to to invest, I mean, you got a track record of putting stuff out. Period.
Everyone we've done was on time or early. I try to keep the Kickstarters kind of simple. I'm a small, couple, the company's me. I have some really great friends that all help in there. 2 of my best friends, I call them my guys who break stuff. I design it and then they break it and I fix it and they break it and I fix it. Yeah. And then
until they can't break it anymore, and then
my wife helps with the marketing and the eye rolling. So when we trigger eye rolls, we know that's good stuff. And like I said, my friends Andrew and Wendy. Wendy's the writer and Andrew is the most brutal editor of stuff you've ever seen. And so between all of us, it's always a labor of love. This is not my job. This is just something I do. I get these ideas and I get this desperate need to share them with people to have, I think the story I try to tell people is like when I met my wife, I had 3 stepdaughters who I couldn't get them to put their cell phones down. And this was 9 years ago. And so what happened is, got a year into that. I'm like, I got this game idea. I'm going to work on it. And we'll convince the girls to help us test it because they think that would be cool. And I'll put them in the games and, stuff like that. And so it became the kind of the SolarFlare games mantra is light games for your friends and your family to help you connect in an analog way in a digital world. That's kind of our mission statement. Robotech we went a little outside because I got the opportunity to work in my something I loved, but with this, it was back to all my stepkids are in this game somewhere. All all my friends from the gaming industry, as many of them as I could track down that would let me make them, turn them into monsters. They're in here, and so the Kickstarter is, we try to keep it really simple. It's the standpoint of the game's going to have a $70 retail. The Kickstarter is going to be $59. We're going to, nowadays with the way the world has changed, the shipping will be charged at the pledge manager, but we're going to discount it a little bit that we can absorb depending on how well we fund. There's some of the stretch goals will be discounted shipping. I think that has more value than anything else I could put as a stretch goal, which is, hey, if you guys help us stretch, your shipping will cost less.
Yeah.
And there's a few nice little things, but we're going to do it. It's a 59 base level. There's going to be we have a game mat that can replace the board. A lot of people like mats instead of a board, so you can have both. And then we created a prestige pack. So those potions, instead of be cardboard punch out discs, I'm good friends with the people over at Meeple Source, and we've got some real. They just started doing 6-color wooden tokens. And the potion bottles they did for us to replace the potion tokens, they're full of 6 colors on the front, and then they look like an empty bottle on the back. So after you use them, you flip them over and they look empty. And we're going to do a little baby mimic as the first player. So instead of the little first player disc cardboard token you move around that tells you who primary hero is, it'll be a 3D modeled mimic. Just little things. And so it's really straightforward and simple. The funding goal, I've done this enough times. I know exactly what I need to get it done. The more we fund, the better it gets for everybody. Less shipping, less shipping cost. There's a few. Right now, what we're talking about is I have a bunch of minis we designed that are fantasy minis that from the one Kickstarter that I wasn't able to get to pull off because when I launched it, 2 days later, CMON launched a massive one, and I was a little tiny company trying to do minis and got just crushed. And so what we may do is unlock people will be able to purchase the copy of the STL files. So we'll for a couple of bucks, people will be able to just buy a copy of the files and print as many of the little fantasy minis as they want on their own. And I'm much more about empowering the people who come support my games than say, okay, well, if you want all these minis, you're gonna have to pay me all this money because I got to do all this packing and shipping. I'd rather just say, hey, here, there's gonna be a couple minis. So there's one thing we did do is there's a miniature of the boss, big demon boss at the end because we actually made a mini with my face. So at the end when you have the big fight at the end, you can have a miniature of the guy moving around the table because you got it.
Copyright your own face,
Exactly. but everything else will be, if you want to print a bunch, if you want to add them on and get the files and print them yourself, because 3D printing is getting so easy and so cheap for everybody. Yeah, why not? Why not make it that way?
It's insane right now.
Let people, if they print it, and they don't like. If they paint it, don't like how it turns out, print another one or print a whole army of the skeletons. I don't care. Make it fun for everybody. There's going to be a couple. There's the Nemesis. 6 of the 8 Nemesis cards we didn't make art for yet, so we're going to actually let people. There's a reward level for each of the 6 Nemesis we haven't made yet, so people can become the Nemesis of one of the heroes if they want. So that's it. It's that simple. It's that straightforward. The game is going to weigh 7.2 pounds when it's done.
So it's gonna be.
It's heavy. It's gonna be a brick. Yeah, it's a brick. Goodness. Well, there's over 240 pages of 8x10 paper in it. Just for
How many specific story quests will it have?
So there are 8 full adventures. Yeah, the adventure book, the campaign book is what we call it, is over 60 pages, 8x10. The adventure book, which is all the lookup stuff, is over 140 pages, and the rule book's about 30. And there's over 500 cards in this thing. So,
average game ideally would last around.
I think unless people are just trying to power through it, which is not, it's not designed to be like playing Raja of the Ganges or something like that, or where you're just trying to beat each other up till you win. And this is talking and laughing and having a good time. So I figure about 2 hours, and once you get really smooth with the mechanics, maybe an hour and a half. And so there's 8 of them. You're talking, probably 16 to 20 hours of playtime if you're not failing these things. If you fail, you have a whole nother 2 hours. You got to try to replay it.
Wow.
It's a lot of. There's a lot here. We played. My friends and I played Charterstone. We also played Pandemic Legacy and some of those other ones. And, I don't want to compare it to them, but to me, if you get
Compare
a
it.
if
Do
you
it.
get a $70 game,
It's May the 4th. Do it.
if you get a $70 game and play it all the way through with a group of friends, and then reset it and play it again, the only thing you know is the couple of plot twists and where the story's going, but you don't know how each of those areas are going to resolve themselves and which monster you're going to see this time. I mean, each of these zones has over 20 monsters. There, when towards the end of the game, each of those zones has almost 50 cards in it, and you're only looking at 6, maybe 7 or 8 if you draw some events and traps and stuff, maybe 10 on a really weird draw. I had to watch somebody draw all 4 traps out of a zone one after the other one night. It was just because you shuffle and that's what happens. So it's got a good long set of legs on it. And like I said, if you were to play with a group of friends and you really just had a good time with it, you could play with another group of friends. And if you're the only one that kind of knows the twists, you're still having a good time watching everybody else experience the story for the first time. And it wasn't like I sat in my room and made the story up. My friend who's an author, she spent months
that
writing
part
the
of the
story
game,
to us.
and you can help out in the strategy. Okay, listen, we need to do this. Yeah. Man, I'm excited for the whole concept, man. I hope it does
Thanks.
well in the kick. So when is the launch date for the Kickstarter?
The Kickstarter will launch May 25th this month, so whatever it is, about 20 days, 7 a.m. Central Time. It will go live. Anywhere where you can find my stuff that we've been posting, the SolarFlare Games site right now, we have some links for there. The Facebook.com/SolarFlare Games, Instagram SolarFlare Games. Twitter's the only one that's weird. TikTok, SolarFlare Games. So we're going to be posting stuff right now on my Facebook page. The author actually did some bonus content if people really want to have some giggles and laughs. We every day we're posting another chunk of story, and we post a piece of art that's one of the characters that the story's about. So like last night, there was a story about the thief stealing the gem out of the dog statue, and it's called the Jewel of Drool. And they're all the light little silly stories, but it's written as if the bard from the world had a newspaper and is writing little articles. So we're doing basically 27, 28 stories in a row, one per day. So if you go to our Facebook page, they can see it there. They go to the SolarFlare Games website, they can see it there, and they're also scattered all over Facebook too. So it's just a little extra that the author wanted to give the fans, to just give them an interest, give them some fun, give us an excuse to show you artwork that isn't like slam, slam, slam. Here's our case Kickstarter coming. It's we invested some time and energy to make it fun.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. Quests, Heroes of Sorcado will be coming to Kickstarter very soon, ladies and gentlemen. So follow SolarFlare Games. Go ahead and give them all the socials. I know you just did it again, but go ahead and give it to them again so they have finally write it down and go right now and follow you. Okay?
It's Facebook.com/SolarFlare Games. Instagram is /SolarFlare Games. TikTok /SolarFlare Games. Twitter actually is oddly it's /Brave Frontier. Don't ask. If you search SolarFlare Games, you'll find us, and then SolarFlareGames.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for hanging out and showing me
Absolutely.
under the hood of the game. I mean, we had an exclusive preview of something that's not even going to be on Kickstarter for till the end of the month. So, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to me candidly about everything. And man, you really are passionate about what you do, and that's
Absolutely.
why I like to have you on the show and you're a great all-around guy, man. I really appreciate your time and thank you
Thanks,
for
bud.
coming on.
Always happy to be here. Thanks,
All right,
man.
Great. So Len, when we're how about let's get you back on maybe for a quick show, maybe in the middle of the Kickstarter. If we
Sure.
need to like boost it or do our part.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Talk about
Sounds good.
reaching some stretch goals or something like that. Just to recap whatever. But let's do a follow up, man. And when you hit the goal and you're in your stretch goals, then we'll definitely go in. And I'm sure you're gonna have even more great exciting announcements for all that stuff.
It'll be fun. We'll have a good time.
All right. So thank you so much, Dave.
No problem. Thanks,
all right,
bud.
have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Checkpoint XP's Twitch channel. And if you're listening or watching this somewhere else, give us a follow, give us a like, give us 5 stars, give us a comment. Even if you don't like us, it helps us out. It helps us become followable. So give us something, okay? Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Geek Culture Congress. Have a good one, everyone.